Today, we're trying to find the ultimate financial shortcut, but it's probably not what you think.
Right.
We're exploring this really radical operating system, a blueprint for massive wealth that requires you to change not just what you do with your money, but who you spend your time with and, well, how relentlessly you promote yourself. We are talking about the playbook of Grant Cardone.
That's right. We are diving into the unconventional and, sometimes brutally honest philosophy of GC. We're drawing key insights from his core material.
Things like the Millionaire booklet, and if you're not first, you're last.
Exactly. And the mission here is to really distill what it takes to think and act like an ultra successful entrepreneur who, truly started from absolute zero.
Okay, so to set the stage, his origin story is pretty essential here. GC started out as a salesman.
Yeah, first in auto sales.
Right, and then he pivoted into large-scale corporate training and seminars. The sources we have show he's estimated to have sold well over $1 billion in training programs.
$1 billion. That is just an enormous amount of transaction volume.
It is. But what's so critical to understand is how he leveraged that cash flow, right? He moved it into his current primary business model.
Large-scale real estate investing. He essentially took all that capital and, the sales savvy he built and just applied it to a high-leverage formula.
Let's slow down and really unpack that formula, because this is where he says the real money is made. How does he finance these massive real estate deals?
It's the powerful principle of using OPM, other people's money.
Right.
When he buys a multi-million-dollar apartment building, he doesn't use his own capital for the whole thing. He typically needs to put up about 30% of the total capital.
So, okay, if it's a $100 million building, he needs $30 million.
Correct. But even that $30 million is itself leveraged. About 10% of that comes from him personally, and 20% comes from outside investors he raises capital from.
Okay, so he's only in for 10% of the 30%.
Of the down payment, yeah. The remaining 70% of the purchase price is leveraged from the bank. He is multiplying his purchasing power significantly.
Why is that 70% debt leveraging so crucial, though? Why not just save up and buy a building outright?
Because that is how you magnify your returns. Look, if you invest $10 million and the property goes up 10%, you made $1 million. Simple enough.
Okay.
But if you only invested $10 million of your own money and borrowed $90 million to buy a $100 million asset that appreciates by 10%.
That $10 million appreciation is now leveraged across the entire asset.
Exactly. It dramatically increases your effective return on the actual capital you deployed. That is the core insight.
That makes perfect sense. He uses OPM and bank debt to dramatically increase his return on investment, his ROI. He goes in, improves the building, maybe changes some admin rules, and increases the rental income flow.
Precisely. And that enhanced cash flow is then strategically allocated. It pays the bank interest, it provides the required returns to the investors, and the rest is GC's profit. It's a structure just designed for continuous leveraged growth.
And despite the, staggering success he had selling training programs, the key insight here is that he believes he should have done this, gone into real estate from day one.
That's the pivot. He realized that real estate yielded much more money with much less effort than the grind of sales and training.
But he also admits he needed that foundation, right?
Oh, for sure. He acknowledges that he needed the experience and the reputation from sales to even qualify for those massive real estate deals and raise that 20% from investors. It was a necessary journey, but real estate was the ultimate destination.
Okay, that gives us the context of extreme leverage. Let's start with the mental foundation he lays out in the Millionaire booklet. What's the very first step?
The first step is purely psychological. You must make the definite decision to achieve wealth and just refuse to view it as something impossible.
It's about removing that mental obstacle that says wealth is only for a select few.
That's it.
And he uses some incredibly motivating data to prove this mental shift is rational, especially for you, the listener, who might still be working a traditional job. He just completely counters the belief that you must be an entrepreneur to be rich.
He absolutely does. The first statistic is startling. 75% of U.S. millionaires, that's 3 out of 4, actually work for someone else.
Wow.
They're employees, managers, highly compensated professionals. This immediately undermines that pressure to quit your job tomorrow and launch a startup.
That reframes everything. You can pursue this goal while staying on a payroll.
And the second statistic is equally encouraging for those without, a financial head start. 80% of U.S. millionaires are classified as self-made. They did not inherit their wealth.
They built it from nothing.
From nothing.
So if you connect those two facts, you realize that the most common path to being a millionaire in the U.S. is being a self-made person who still holds down a job. That is incredibly powerful.
It is. It's designed to be a message of immense hope. However, just for balance, the source material does note that this self-made percentage might not hold true globally.
Okay.
For example, in regions with less social mobility, like Argentina, the percentage of inherited wealth is likely higher. But the US data clearly supports the idea that the start from scratch path is achievable.
Decision made, motivation established, now we need the fuel. The second major rule is simple: increase your income. How does he advise listeners to aggressively tackle this?
He gives 2 tracks. First, you increase the productivity of your current job, often by moving to a commission or performance-based pay structure where your output is directly linked to your earnings.
But the key aggressive action
is immediately adding complementary side ventures outside your 9-to-5. You must constantly be hunting for new flows of cash.
And this leads directly into what he calls the holy grail of financial freedom, which is having not just one high-paying job, but what?
It's having multiple flows of income. The source details that GC himself, at the time of the recording, had over 16 different income streams.
16.
Yeah. We're talking about flows that require different levels of activity, maybe a salary, stock dividends, rental income from apartments, a small percentage in some family land, maybe money from a side company importing from China, or podcast sponsor revenue.
16 streams sounds overwhelming, but the benefit is clear. Massive financial resilience.
That's the point. If one income flow dies, if a side business collapses or the stock market dips, you have 15 others buffering you. It's overwhelming redundancy designed to make you fail-proof.
And he adds a critical constraint on those flows, doesn't he? They shouldn't just be random silos of effort.
No, they cannot be random. They must be complementary and self-feeding. He famously describes them as the fingers of a hand, all moving together.
So a new business or income stream has to enhance the existing ones.
Must.
Give us a concrete example of that complementary rule in action.
Okay, so if you're a real estate developer, maybe you open an architecture studio, or you start a related podcast to interview other developers. You get sponsors, which is one stream, and you get intel and connections for your main business.
The new stream strengthens the old one and vice versa.
Exactly. So starting a car factory alongside an operation exporting corn would be a bad idea. Non-complementary. They require separate infrastructure, knowledge, customer networks.
They don't cross-feed.
Not at all. GC's own path is the best example. His visibility as a public speaker amplified his ability to sell business training, and his training gave him the expertise to be a valuable speaker. Every activity enhances the entire ecosystem.
If that synergy is the goal, the next rule is about ensuring your human capital, your network, also adheres to that principle. This brings us to the extreme rule of association, often distilled down to the question:
who's got my money? This rule is what separates GC from standard networking gurus. It dictates that you must focus your valuable time, especially networking lunches, only on people who can potentially buy your product or service.
Or refer you to someone who can.
Or refer you. It's brutal. He talks about deliberately cutting time with friends like Alfon Perez, who just wants to talk about baseball because that time isn't high leverage.
It is radically prioritizing economic relationships. The time spent has to be a productive investment. If he goes to an event, he's not there to socialize broadly.
No, he's there to identify and connect with the 4 specific people who could move his capital forward.
But wait, doesn't this strategy just inherently isolate you? Doesn't it damage your personal support network? I mean, surely there's a line between intense focus and just alienating your friends.
That's the core criticism of this philosophy, for sure. But GC argues that for someone relentlessly focused on massive wealth, the psychological cost is worth the economic gain. He has a very stark view on the danger of poor association.
What's his take on that?
He argues that if you spend all your time with people who constantly talk about their lack of money, their failure to pay bills, you will eventually internalize that scarcity mindset and become financially like them.
And conversely.
Conversely, spending time with people who discuss capital markets, raising capital rounds, and investment opportunities naturally shifts your frame of reference toward growth.
So it's not just about immediate sales then. It's about curating your mindset and your access.
Absolutely. This links directly to a concept from if you're not first, you're last. Your contact base is your power base. GC makes the bold assertion that contacts are actually more important than knowledge, intelligence, or even sheer effort.
That is a staggering statement in a knowledge economy. Contacts over knowledge.
Because contacts provide access and trust. The action point is to continually enlarge this power base. Attend all possible events, even the boring municipal meetings or random museum openings.
And networking isn't high-pressure selling in this context.
No, it's simply connecting, getting to know people, building trust, and getting their contact info, like their phone number. Trust is the key. People prefer to buy from known contacts, even if it costs a bit more.
And that trust reduces risk.
It's the currency. It's essential for everything. Getting early access to land, navigating city approvals, vetting vendors so you don't get scammed. It's the infrastructure of high-level business.
Okay, once that income flow and high-level network are established, we move to the rules on investing and liquidity. This is where he tells people to intentionally stay broke.
This is probably the most counterintuitive rule for most people. GC advocates for saving specifically to invest, not just to save for emergencies.
The old mentality, saving cash for a rainy day.
Right. He believes that mentality always results in that money being spent on trivial emergencies, diverting it from its potential less productive capital.
So if you don't use cash savings for emergencies, what is the safety net?
You have to rely on the flow of money generated by your investments to manage emergencies. Your real estate cash flow, your dividends, those 16 streams, that is your safety net, not a stagnant savings account. Money must always be working.
And to make sure he did this himself, he took that extreme step you mentioned, forced investment.
Yes. To prevent himself from spending investment capital, he'd place savings into special, non-liquid bank accounts he couldn't personally access until the investment goal was met.
Like securing the funds for an entire building.
Exactly. He actively forced himself to stay non-liquid or broke, ensuring every dollar was immediately funneled into a productive hard asset. The definition of non-liquidity here is just intentionally having zero buffer cash, so every dollar is productive.
But wait, for 99% of people, that sounds financially irresponsible. Isn't telling someone to intentionally empty their buffer cash just a recipe for disaster if a big unexpected expense hits?
It absolutely requires an extremely high risk tolerance and confidence in generating new income quickly. But his argument is grounded in economic reality. The sources highlight the necessity of investing in hard assets like real estate due to severe dollar inflation.
Over 30% between 2017 and 2025 in the US.
Right, so if you are just saving cash in a standard account, you are guaranteed to lose purchasing power. You are actively choosing to get poorer.
So non-liquidity is both a spending guardrail and an inflation defense. How, then, does he handle the fun stuff, like luxury items?
You never buy them with your savings or your core investment capital. You must purchase them using the cash flow generated by your investments.
Use the rental income from an apartment to buy the watch.
Exactly. The asset remains untouched. The income stream pays for the lifestyle.
And we can't forget the buy to affordability test. That's a great simple rule.
It is a phenomenal mental barrier against impulse spending. Before you buy any item, you must be able to afford two of them. If you can't afford two, you can't afford one. It keeps your spending aligned with true wealth, not just temporary solvency.
All these rules, the leverage, the synergy, the forced investment, they build the engine. Now we get to the ultimate rule. The throttle that accelerates everything.
The paramount non-negotiable rule of business for Grant Cardone is promote, promote, promote.
And his approach to promotion is almost industrial. It's not about overanalyzing branding. He just promotes all day, all the time.
It is relentless visibility designed for market saturation. He's constantly live streaming, wearing his company brand, Cardone Capital, on his shirt, branding his private plane, even using his wife's and daughter's profiles for promotion.
And the strategy isn't focused on quality or high engagement metrics per video, is it? It's the quantity that matters.
Exactly. There's a classic story about him advising Alex Hormozi, the best-selling author. GC told Hormozi straight up that he sells more simply because he publishes a higher volume across every single platform.
He prioritizes saturation over perfection. So if an individual video only gets 300 likes, he still hits send.
Absolutely. The goal is omnipresence. Volume overcomes low individual engagement because if you produce enough content, you will inevitably catch the market's attention. Your collective output establishes you as an authority far more than one perfectly polished post.
It's an industrialized approach to publicity.
It really is.
And to bring this hyperlinear philosophy full circle, we have to touch on the ultimate example of his metrics-based life, the marriage anecdote. It just perfectly encapsulates his approach.
It does. When Hormozi was uncertain about proposing to his girlfriend, GC advised him to run a statistical check. Review his income and company metrics since the relationship began.
And if those metrics were trending upward?
Which they were, then the relationship was financially beneficial and he should marry her.
Wow. Measuring personal life purely by its positive impact on the P&L statement, that is the epitome of the Cardone philosophy. Every single aspect of your existence is measured by its contribution to capital and leverage.
It synthesizes the entire playbook, the radical focus, the demanding honesty of who's got my money, and the nonstop promotion to keep those streams flowing.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's say you're one of those 75% of US millionaires who works for someone else, and you've heard the data on inflation and the need for hard assets.
The challenge Cardone presents is a fundamental conflict. Is the greater risk following the old advice saving cash for an emergency, knowing inflation is eroding its value daily, or following Cardone's extreme rule?
Saving only to invest everything, forcing yourself to be non-liquid, and maximizing your leverage.
That's the question.
Cardone's path demands an immediate high-leverage move. For the person starting now, that move probably isn't buying a building. It's a radical audit of their environment. What immediate high-leverage move should you make?
You need to focus relentlessly on that power base. The first action is to audit your association base. Who are you spending your time with? And does that association move you closer to the capital and the mindset required to navigate a 70% leveraged life? That's where the power base begins, and that is a decision you can make today without spending a dime.